Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. It's Amin here, and today I'm doing a video all about interviewing for genetic counseling programs. If you've never been on my channel before, like I said, hi, my name is Amin. I am a genetic counselor. I'm a prenatal genetic counselor. I make quite a few videos about genetic counseling in general, so if this is the first time that you're hearing about it or you kind of want some more background information, definitely check out some of my other videos. I'll put them up on the screen and in the description below. I also make a few vlog style videos where I kind of take you along for a work week in my life, and so if you're interested to see more of what a prenatal genetic counselor does, the kinds of cases that we see, definitely check out those videos. But today I'm going to be doing a more in-depth video, the kind of the tips and tricks that I would recommend if you're preparing for any interviews to get into a genetic counseling school. So just a bit of background on my story. I graduated from undergrad in 2019 and I'm Canadian, so I went to school here, and then I applied for the first time for grad schools while I was in my fourth year or my senior year. And I was able to get into a program, so I started in September of 2019, and then I just graduated this summer in 2021, and so now I've been working as a full-time genetic counselor for about 6 months. And so everything I'll be talking about is based off of my experience back in, I guess, early 2019 is when I was doing interviews, which kind of already might be a little bit outdated, but I've been talking to quite a few prospective students and mentoring some people along their journey of applying to genetic counseling school. And so I thought it would be helpful if I kind of put together all of my recommendations into a video so that it would be able to help a few more people along the way. If you are watching this video, my assumption is that you have gotten an interview for a genetic counseling school, so congratulations, first of all. It's a very competitive field, as you may have noticed, and so just getting an interview should be a huge boost for yourself because it is such a competitive applicant pool. And so there was something at least on your application that these schools looked at and thought, okay, you know what, I want to meet this person and get to know a little bit more about them. And so that's a really great thing. If you are thinking about applying to schools or you're kind of waiting to hear back from schools to see if you got an interview or not, honestly, the waiting part is the worst. I always tell people, because you don't know, is this the year that I'm going to get in? Is this the year I get to show them who I am, or do I have to kind of wait another year? And so fingers crossed for everyone who is interested in applying or is currently applying, that things will work out for you. But let's kind of jump into number one, the first tip that I have, and that is to do your research. Of course, this is a tip that you probably are like, okay, obviously I'm going to be doing my research. And so if you're in the application process right now, you probably already know that every school has a different way or a different method that they use to interview their students. So there's no standardized way of doing, like, for example, MMIs, like every school will kind of have the same thing. It's definitely not like that. Every school has their own way of doing things. They have their own style, which of course has pros and cons to it, right? The cons are that you have to kind of prepare yourself for every single interview that you get in a different way. But also the good thing about it is that you can really see if you would be a good fit for this program or not, depending on the way that they handle things or the way they lay things out. And so it's a really good way to kind of get a sense back and forth from what you like about the program and what they like about you based on how they organize their interviewing process. So like I was saying, the first tip is to do your research. So when I was doing interviews, I was kind of preparing for these interviews, I tried to find everything that I possibly could about these programs on their websites. And so it's really important that you get to know who is part of their faculty, who is potentially going to be interviewing you, what kind of interests do they have, what kind of classes do they teach, what have they published, things like that, because again, every interviewer will also have a different style, and so it's good to just have some background information about this person and kind of what their career achievements have been. And then of course, just finding out things about the program itself. Is there something special about this program that kind of drew your interest to applying there in the first place? Is there something that you're really passionate about that this program is reflecting? Because you want to make sure that when you go to this interview they know that you are actually truly interested in this program. And so that shows by the types of questions that you're asking and the types of information that you're providing in your answers. So definitely research the programs, the interviewers, the location. Where is this program located? Is it an online program? Is it in person? What's the city like? If you have access to maybe like asking current students or recent grads what their experience was like at this program, just trying to get as much information as you possibly can so that you yourself feel prepared, but it also shows during the interview as well. Okay, tip number 2. Once you've done all of your research gathering for the specific program, what I found really helpful was to kind of create a question bank. By that, I mean trying to come up with as many questions as possible that you think a program would ask you. And so for these types of interviews, there is no set bank necessarily that you'll find online, or somebody who kind of went through the process last year would be able to give you. Like I said, every program does things differently, and so I'm pretty sure the bank that I came up with was like 100 questions, maybe 150 different questions. Some of them were things that I just came up with on my own, like trying to put myself in the shoes of the program to see what would they want to know of a prospective student. And then other ones were just things that I found online. Like, of course, they're going to be asking you specific questions to genetic counseling, but then also questions that any grad program would. There are lots of different forums online of like questions that you would be asked for XYZ grad program, and I'm sure a lot of those can also translate to genetic counseling interviews as well. The one thing that I tried to practice a lot was scenario-based questions. And so from my experience, I was asked quite a few questions that kind of went like, give me an example of a time when ... And so what I found really helpful when doing my practice was to come up with a few different stories that I wanted to make sure I was relaying through my answers. And so this was a piece of advice that I got from the career center that was at my campus at undergrad, and they kind of helped to prepare me for these interviews as well. And they told me to come up with 3 to 5 different stories that highlight characteristics about myself that I want to make sure that I'm getting across to the interviewer. And so these could be stories of an example of a situation that you kind of handled well when you were volunteering, for example, or something that happened at work that showed like XYZ characteristics. So these kinds of stories, maybe come up with a few in your head and then find a way to kind of weasel them into the answers that you're giving at these interviews, because I've also interviewed quite a few people for other types of things, and what I find helpful is that when people tell a story, you will remember them. If you just tell me facts or just kind of reiterate what's on your resume already, you're not going to be as memorable. But if you tell me a story that kind of evokes emotions, then I'm going to remember you more likely. And so that would be my kind of advice. And then of course, with all these questions, run through them as many times as you can, and maybe try doing a little bit of role playing with different kinds of people. So you can use your family members, you can use your partners, you can use your friends, you can use professionals like at a career center or something like that. If you are really close with a genetic counseling student or a genetic counselor, maybe ask them to kind of act as an interviewer and then be able to give you some feedback on the questions, depending on how you're answering these things, what can make you sound more confident, what can make you sound like you are really interested in this program, that you're really a good fit. And so of course you probably already know this, but you have to practice. Number 3 is another cliche type of tip, and it honestly is to just be yourself. And the reason I say this is because you will be spending the next 2 years of your life with this program and with these people, with this cohort, and you want to be authentic, right? You don't want to be pretending like you're somebody that you're not, and then you're in the program and you find out that maybe it's not a good fit because you weren't being true to yourself when you were interviewing, and so they thought you were going to be a certain way, but then you're not a certain way, and you maybe might not be having the best time for the next 2 years. So definitely be yourself, and a lot of that I think has to do with even just the exercise of practicing through the questions and doing role plays. You find out so much more about yourself and the way you answer things, the way you handle different situations, and so along that way you kind of learn the self-awareness that is needed to be a genetic counseling student and eventually a genetic counselor. And so when you think about the answers to these questions, it takes a lot of reflection, but that's a good thing, right? You want to make sure that you are confident and comfortable in your own skin. Tip number 4 is to trust your gut. What I always tell people is that as much as you are being interviewed by the program, in a way you're also interviewing them, right? You want to make sure that this is a program where you belong, where you can really see yourself for the next 2 years, where you think you're going to have the best experience learning and growing, not only in your career, but also as an individual. If there's something about this interview that's kind of throwing you off or doesn't feel right, listen to your gut. It probably is something there that's kind of a bit of a red flag for you, and maybe that's in your scenario, it's something that doesn't work well for you. And for the person who comes after you, maybe it's not even something that is bothering them, right? And so kind of listen to your gut in terms of, where do I think I really can fit in? Where would I be happy? What makes me really excited about these different programs? And that's something that will also help when you're kind of doing your ranking for the match program, is kind of seeing, okay, where do I get that gut feeling that I feel good in? Where can I see myself going? And a lot of people told me that when I was doing my interviews. They said, oh, you just have to feel the vibe. And I was like, what are you talking about? But there definitely is a vibe. You have a vibe, the program has a vibe, the faculty has a vibe, the school itself has a vibe, and so all of that kind of needs to mesh together. And it's a little bit different, of course, when you're doing things virtually. There might be some programs that are maybe not doing things virtually anymore, they are doing things in person, but with, you know, COVID cases going up and down like literally all the time, my guess is that a lot of programs will be doing virtual interviews, and so it is, I would say, a bit harder to kind of get that vibe when you're doing things virtually, but hopefully there's still something there that they're giving you enough information, they're giving you enough substance so that you can make a decision that's best for you. At the end of the day, it should be equal, right? The program should want you, but you should also want to go there. I know when you're an applicant, you kind of feel a bit desperate. You want to say, I'll go to any program, I don't care, I'm going to apply to like 20 different programs and then see wherever I get in, whatever I match to is where I'm going to go. And so at some point, I think everybody has that thought process, but after kind of going through the whole program and finishing, it's really important that you end up somewhere that you really feel like is a good fit for you. I always said this, but I honestly cannot imagine myself being anywhere else. And of course that's biased because now I'm on the other side, but it's really important that you make sure you're trusting your gut, which also means thinking about all of the other things that are important, like your finances, the location, the cost of living, the different courses you have to take, the rotations. Like, there's so many different things and each program is so different. Kind of just trying to remember what's important to you at the end of it as well, and listening to what your intuition is saying. And then the last tip I have is tip number 5, is to ask questions. This is something that I wasn't really told until I started kind of snooping around on the internet, meeting other people who, you know, have gone through the process before or are genetic counseling students. And so at the end of almost every interview, they will ask, do you have any questions for us? And you know how they say there's no wrong answers? The wrong answer in this scenario is to say you don't have any questions, because that shows that, number one, you did not do your research. And that was the first tip I said, is to make sure you're doing your research. While you're doing this research, come up with questions something good to ask that isn't available on their website, something that kind of makes them reflect on their program, maybe them as a genetic counselor themselves. And so this kind of comes into play of when you're also researching the interviewers. Is there something really unique about their background or their career trajectory that has kind of sparked your interest? Or are there certain things that, you know, are really important to you when picking a program where you were not able to see on their website? So coming up with some good questions that are not easy yes or no or fact-based questions. Maybe you can throw some in there as well, but also coming with some more deeper level questions. But I do remember that I did take a notebook with me to all of my in-person interviews because, like I said, it was before COVID, and I had like a list of questions that I wrote in this book. And then during the interviews, I asked if it was okay if I just looked at my book to refresh my memories on the questions that I had. And then so depending on how much time you have left with the interviewer, kind of asking as many questions as you can, because like I said, again, it's a two-way street. They want to make sure that you're a good fit for them, but you also want to make sure that they're a good fit for you. And so asking really good questions, even if they're a little tough, even if they're a little hard, the way that they answer those questions can really tell you what you're looking for and if this is the right place for you. So there you have it, 5 tips on what I would recommend you do to kind of prepare for your genetic counseling interviews. I really hope this video has been helpful for you. Again, congratulations if you have gotten even just one interview for a master's program. This is a huge deal. Best of luck in all of your preparation. I hope everything works in your favor. If you have any other questions or you kind of want to keep me updated on what's going on, definitely comment below. If you want to see any more of my videos, either my vlog style videos or other types of genetic counseling videos, definitely like this video and subscribe to my channel if you want more content, and I will see you next time. Thanks for watching. Bye.